So welcome. We are going to talk a little bit about our experiences. We would love to know who you are. We would love to know where you're based, how long you've been home educating, anything that you want to tell us that maybe we can connect you through the chat with other people. So to start off with, Jo, could you just introduce yourself briefly?
Yes. Great to have everybody here. Yep, my name's Jo. I have been home educating for 4 years and now have a son who is 14 and twin girls who are 10, and we are normally Bristol based.
We're allowed to ask where you are now?
I'm currently living in the Dominican Republic.
As you do.
Isn't it?
For a couple more months. So, yep, it's hot. And I'm in the air-conditioned room, which I know is strange because it's raining in the UK.
Not so bad.
So good to have you with us.
Yeah, we could chat. I think part of this, we are going to just chat, so please bear with us. Yeah, if you've got any questions or anything like that, or any comments you want to make, or things you'd like us to find out about our experience of being newbie home educators, and please feel free to pop that in the chat. I think for all of us, I think one of the reasons we're doing this is because we're still newbies as well in the grand scheme of things. So like Jo, to carry on from what Jo said, we joined the home educating tribe a year after Jo and her family, and we moved to Bristol, and we started home educating. A lot of it was to do with the fact that Jo said, come on, it's really good, you should give it a try, and it'll be really good for your kids. There's lots else around it which maybe we can unpack as we chat with each other. But yeah, we've done it for, actually my wife is in the same room. How long have you been home educating? 3 years. There you go. Time flies. Anyway, yeah, Sean, what about you?
So we've been home educating for 3 years. Three daughters. Took our eldest daughter out from school when she was in year 4. So Jo, I have really clear memories of you sitting on my sofa. Someone connected me with Jo, and Jo came round and spent an evening on the sofa very patiently listening to this angst-ridden woman saying that I was sure that we needed to home educate, but I was utterly terrified. And so Jo sat there and encouraged me, even though I think, Jo, you'd only been home educating a year at the time, I think. So she listened to me and yes, took my daughter out of school, and then within the year, my other 2 daughters followed suit. 3 years ago. Sometimes it doesn't feel as long as 3 years, and sometimes it feels an awful lot longer.
A lot longer.
I'm seeing that Danielle's posted a question. I'm not sure whether the best thing to do is to start with a little of our stories or to answer the question. What should we?
Well, yeah, I think or both and. I think it's one of the biggest challenges is actually starting. I found, and it's that whole thing of doing something that's a bit countercultural, and then you get the inevitable questions of that. The starting phase is. I don't know whether you found it as well, but it's exciting, it's challenging, it's a little bit overwhelming as well. But it's one of those. It's like with anything, like a new adventure. There's all those things wrapped up. Nervous sighted, I think our daughter describes it as that kind of step into the unknown of are we doing the right thing, and it's, I guess, turning off some of the other voices that you have from other people. You guaranteed to have some people who have an opinion about these sort of things because they care about what you're doing. So I think that's a challenge, and I think probably the answer to a lot of these questions is community around you. I think I found just that having other people that are on the similar sort of journey. So that's been so helpful. So knowing Jo and Sean and there's a lovely home ed community here in Bristol and wider that we tap into sometimes. I think that's been key in overcoming that initial the jump into that oh my goodness, what have we done? So that's been one challenge that I felt, still feeling a little bit, but I felt. Well, what about for you two, Joe and Sean?
I think for me, was the fact that we were living very much in the school community at the time. And so taking our daughter out of school and still living in a very close-knit school community, which we loved, that was really hard. So talk about going countercultural, going against the flow. That was very hard. That was a huge challenge, living within the school community and yet not, well, half being part of it and then not being part of it. So that was really hard. And I think that whole phrase of holding your nerve in those first few months is really crucial, to really believe that you're taking this step for a very good reason. And so you just have to hold your nerve. And I had lovely people around me. I had curious people watching us and our home educating journey. I had some very good school friends who were really supportive, but it still felt that I was quite isolated and very much doing our own thing. And that just got easier. It became the norm to start to avoid the school run times. Didn't really want to
Don't look out the window.
Yeah, I didn't really want to walk against the flow of all those uniformed children coming out of school. So we used to avoid those times just because it was a bit awkward. And then yes, and connecting with other people and figuring out that life was beginning to look quite different, and it was okay actually. And once that confidence came, we had a new confidence of being able to stay connected to those people within the school community that we wanted to stay connected to, and then it became a normal thing, a new normal way of life.
Yeah.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah, that's good, Sean. And I think probably for me, it's less now, but it's definitely always been there. When you sort of deconstructing your understanding of what education is. So for me, obviously, I went through the normal education system, and we're surrounded by people who walk through that, and so that there's this constant sort of thoughts in my head of, but what about the curriculum, and well, should I be teaching that? And if my son connects with one of his friends who's still at school, some of his good buddies, they'll have done something at school, perhaps in science, or and I go, oh no, my son's not had access to that. Should he have had, and I start to have this mindset of going, oh no, am I letting the kids down by them not being in the education system where everything's done for them and I don't have to carry that weight of responsibility? And I think the way I have found to navigate those thoughts that come into my head about, are we doing enough, is to step back and go, what is my big picture? So what is my goal? What is my aim? So I love Simon Sinek just talks so well about finding your why. He's got quite a few TED Talks which aren't education related, but I found those so helpful, because it's like, why are we choosing to home educate? Actually, the reason we're choosing to home educate is my kids weren't thriving at school. And therefore my vision for my kids in our home education is that they become confident, curious, creative, compassionate children who've got this excitement about learning. And when I step back then from all those questions about curriculum and are we teaching enough, are we doing the right thing, and are we too structured, are we not structured, all those thoughts that can bounce around my head, I go, but actually, what's my goal for my children? And the goal for my children is that big picture. So I have to keep coming back to that big picture of what I hope my kids will be and what I want for them, which is the confident and the curious and the creative. So I think, and in terms of my current big challenge, and I know Matt and I talk quite a bit about this, is, our children are heading towards that GCSE stage. So should we be doing GCSEs or not doing GCSEs? And welcome, Monica. I think you've come in to join us. So that's my big question. my do we do GCSEs or do we not? And if I'm really honest in terms of that challenge, it depends which day you talk to me. So some days I'm like, do you know what, forget it, we're not going to do GCSEs. My son's thriving, he's happy, he's creative, he's exploring his own passions. We'll just forget GCSEs. And then other days I flip into that, oh my goodness, quick, find an English tutor, find a maths tutor, like let's do GCSEs. And I can find myself flip out. So again, it's coming back to my why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And as actually Sian's husband very wisely said to her once, if they do GCSEs when they're 25, that's probably okay.
He's the calm one.
He is. I'm not saying you're not calm at all. So you got Danielle, you got me started on challenges. I start going to all these different things. It is encouraging as well. There's great stuff as well. But I think the challenge as well, whether you find it with your children. So I've got two daughters. One's 13 and one's 10, and they're so different. They're really, really different. So our eldest, I was chatting to her today about this, how her and her sister are quite different, saying she's quite task orientated, and then whereas our youngest is very people orientated. So our eldest loves to work through things, tick things off, and work through things methodically. Our youngest is a raging extrovert and needs people around her, and so she's all about the people and being around people, and so she's an environment for that. So that's a challenge, having like two different sort of types of people in the same family. And I think one of the joys of home education is you can tailor stuff to people, to different needs, and that's one of the real benefits of doing it. But yeah, that's a challenge, and still working through that, actually working out how, making sure that our eldest has enough, she's happy with the working through things, and that I'm just, because I can assume she's all fine and that she's just working through things, and giving her permission to come and say to me, oh, I'm not quite getting this, can you help me with this? Whereas our youngest is, like I say, the extrovert, just it's a very different approach with her, and so trying to get her to engage with, trying to work with her passions and things like that. So that's our challenge particular challenge at the moment is making sure we engage her really well in a way that suits her, which through lockdown has been quite tough. But so I think that's been a challenge. How about your kids? Are they all the same? Are they clones?
I think you've got me thinking there. I think because I'm thinking back to those very early days, and do you remember? I remember Joe, you used to tell the story as well of just grabbing any homeschooler, home educator you could find, and saying, but what is it that you do each day? Give me a program, give me a structure, just give me something that tells me what I'm supposed to do. And I think for me, this does link back to what you were saying, Matt. I think for me, that was one of the biggest challenges at the start. What on earth do I do now? What does it look like? What is it supposed to look like? And of course, the hardest answer you get is it's not supposed to look like anything. It's about you and your children, their needs, their interests, their personalities. So just thinking about what you were saying, Matt, you've got to know your children, haven't you? You've got to trust your instincts, that whether you've got an extrovert or an introvert, you tailor what you have towards them. And that, of course, is going to be different in every family. And if I think about how I got over that, it was still really, really helpful talking to other home educators about what they do, because then I started to piece together, well, that won't suit us, but that bit might suit us, and that won't suit us, but that bit might suit us. And so I started to build together a structure for our days that suited us. And of course, the other hard thing, of course, is that never stays the same. So depending on circumstances, whether it's lockdown or whatever else, it is quite a fluid thing. And so I'm now 3 years on, just starting to get that confidence to say, yeah, that's okay, that used to work, but we need to change it to this now. And it's taken a while actually for that confidence to grow.
Yeah, what about for you, Joe?
Yeah, I think the confidence is having the confidence in yourself is the big challenge, and I think we get quite disempowered, don't we? We're told from the age of 4 that our children need to be in school because that's the best place for them. And I know I, for one, my son, when he was starting school, my twins were 18 months old. So if I'm really honest, sending him to school in a way was quite a relief because home was chaotic. And my husband had actually ripped his Achilles, so he couldn't walk, and it was just a manic time. So actually my son going to school was a relief, but there was something in me right at the beginning where I was like, I'm not sure school's the right place for him. Like I could see him very quickly, that excitement, they go to school and then suddenly about 3 days later they realize actually school's for every day, not just a fun expedition for a few days. And even back then at the beginning, I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And we did actually change him to a really small local we had to drive, but we went out to a little tiny village where he was part of a small village school because the school system, I knew it wasn't right for him. But I think we get disempowered quite early on as parents into believing that we can educate our children. And actually we can. And I love finding and connecting with organisations which speak life into that belief. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Wild and Free, which are actually based out in America, but they send out a monthly newsletter. I'm not a member of Wild and Free, but I get their monthly newsletter, and I love when the letter comes because it's so empowering, and it encourages us to believe that actually we can educate our kids. And actually we're really good at it. And it doesn't mean we're the expert and we have all the answers, but actually we are the enabler of their learning experience. And for me, it's shifting that mindset. My son's 14 and, passionate about IT and tech and physicsy type things and maths, and they're all the things I'm terrible at. And, Matt's laughing because he has to put up with my tech skills sometimes. But you know what? There's resources out there. So actually it's about trying to find the place where he can go and connect and learn, and the people we can draw in to support him in that journey. So not feeling I have to be the expert in everything, but actually I'm the enabler, and that takes the pressure off me.
So we're talking about being new to home education and all the highs and lows of that. And just to remind you, or to let anyone who's just joined the chat, that Joe, Matt and I have all entered the world of home education within the last 4 years. I was wondering, what about attitude of others as you enter into this wacky and wonderful world of home education? Any thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah. Well, I was because Joe knows this. I think you probably do know, Charlotte. If ever I write a book about home education, it's going to the subtitle is going to be, "But what about Bunsen burners and socialisation?" They're the things that people worry about. They always say, "Well, what about science? How are you going to do science? And what about socialisation?" Because we always put our children in a box during the day and don't let them out. So I think that was one of the challenges, and someone in I had a really nice chat. Hang on, I'm going to rephrase this. I think one of the things is important to have like discussions around it with people, because people are interested and people do care, and I think that's where they come from. So people's attitudes towards it. Often some are like, "Oh, I can't believe you're doing that. That's a really bad thing." Some people are, I think made a mistake. Some people are very, very supportive of it, and almost with that, "I can't believe how brave you are. I wish I was that brave." And then and then you've got other people just really, really curious about what you're stepping into. And I kind of found all of those. So people's reactions were generally supportive, and I think some of the ones that are a bit more challenging were out of love and not out of you're an idiot. But that's, yeah, so it's just, I guess it's riding that wave. It kind of goes back to what Joe was saying about knowing your why, and that's really, so if you kind of know your why, and also someone once said to me, if you know what your big yes is, you can say no to lots of other things because you're still carrying on with your big yes. So I guess that's the way kind of we've ridden that wave, and to be honest, it does knock you sometimes. You do take a step back and go, oh, you know, as we said before, are we doing the right thing? But yeah, you've got to remember, like they say, like Joe says, what your big yes is and what your vision is for your family. Bunsen burners.
Yeah, I know for us as well, when we started, actually, the journey was a bit easier at the beginning. I come from a teaching family, so my parents were teachers and my mother-in-law is a teacher. And so actually at the beginning, I found it quite a bit easier. We said that we were going to home educate for a year. And I think giving sort of family that sense of, look, we're going to try this, but with an end point, actually enabled some of them to relax a bit more into the process. And actually my sister-in-law was a head teacher at the time as well. And it's been interesting because fast forward a year, and actually fast forward 4 now, what they can do is they can look at my kids and they comment on how they've seen them thrive and how they've seen them come alive and how they've seen them grown as individuals. And so I've seen a mindset shift in family, not because we had to argue a case, but that they've observed changes in the kids. And interestingly, for my sister-in-law, who initially was the one who was most, why are you home educating? You know, the system's great. She's now considering home educating her oldest daughter, who's 11. And that to me is testimony that actually our kids get to demonstrate the impact that home education can have on a child's life. And we don't need to argue or battle or try and fight our cause, because the kids do a great job. They just show it through being who they are.
So I've
got my son standing behind just pulling a funny face. Sorry.
So for anyone who's joined us, we're just talking about the attitude of others when you step into the world of home education. So Matt, your book was going to be called Bunsen Burners and Socialisation.
Subtitle.
Yeah, I think mine would be called I Couldn't Do It. And that you're brave, I couldn't do it. And that was a line I heard over and over, I couldn't do it. And of course, when you're in those early stages and you haven't got huge confidence in this, it's quite an unnerving thing to hear. And it's not said out of any malice or anything like that, but it's still quite an unnerving thing to say. So why couldn't you do it? Why do I think I can do it? Was my question to myself. And I would, if you are very new to the world of home education, I would maybe, a tip might be to take some time to think about a response. If you are getting certain lines coming to you quite a lot from whether it's friends or family, just to think about what your response is going to be, and take time to think about what your response is. As Joe said, to really root down into what your why is at the moment. And your why might change as time goes on, but to know what your why is initially and to form a response so that you're not caught in some flustered moment that I frequently was caught in. If you do have any questions, please post them. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. We've got about 20 minutes. So if you do have any questions or any comments that you'd like to make, please just do pop them into the chat room.
One of the questions that we had in the app was about how do you how do you land? I guess two parts to this question. One, how do you land and how you do things, And then how do you do it on a budget? Like, as in, not everyone has lots of money around to spend on, to afford to make mistakes on, you buy this curriculum or something like that and go, oh, actually, that's not what I need. So, I mean, how did you land on what you needed? And then how do you work on a budget if you haven't, you've not got lots of disposable money? How do you work that one out? What would you say?
So I listened to Liz Jenkins this morning in the Newbie room. Liz Jenkins from Educational Freedom, and she was talking a bit about that, about choosing a curriculum if that's what you want to do. And it was really interesting. She said, don't do it. Don't invest in anything straight away. Get in touch with local groups via Facebook or wherever, and see what might be an offer, what you might be able to borrow, what is in the library, because she said there's nothing more disheartening than spending a huge amount of money on a curriculum that you haven't road tested and finding out that's actually not where your children are at, or it's not going to connect with your children. And I think that's really good advice, isn't it? To not really spend a huge amount of money on anything in the initial stages.
Yeah, because there is a real tendency, I can so relate to this, of like, you go, right, I need to do that, right, I'm going to buy that and I'm going to get that, and then go, oh no, that didn't work out, right, what else can we do? No, we're not flush with money, but it is that panic reaction. So it's just, again, that phrase, kind of riding the wave, isn't it? Of like, okay, it'll be okay. And that's the thing, when you first, that thing about jumping ship, first of all, is that whole thing to decompress from school. I remember that's one of the bits of advice you gave, Joe, early on for us. Just let your kids decompress from school. I think because all three of our families, we had been in the school system and then came out. So it's different if you're kind of going into it from the beginning. And you set this out as this is the way our family is going to be from the start. But we all jump ship, and our kids our girls needed that so much, just to be able to go from school and that treadmill of things. So yes. Well, and any thoughts, Joe, about budgets and and money, how to manage that, Joe?
Yeah, I think I'm very mindful that when we step into home educating, that there's a lifestyle choice for a family that's made. So, for us, the three of us speaking here, that means we're choosing not to work so that our kids can be home educated, and there are cost implications to that in terms of income, and we're reliant on our other halves, and I think it's really hard. And I know there's often chats around, should there be money from the government which enables home educators, because in Canada that is a reality. You can home educate in Canada and get a budget for home education, which some days I think would be really nice, but then people get nervous if you get a budget that then it comes with regulation and restrictions, and I think it is more challenging the older the children get. So yeah, Emma, read that your son will be 13 next month. I feel that with you, because on the days when I'm thinking, should we be doing GCSEs, I then look at the cost of doing a GCSE, and the process the kid, my son, would need to go through to obtain one, and I think, wow, that's expensive. And so I'm in a constant, I don't think there's an easy answer to how you manage a budget, other than looking at what you have, and then it's about spending wisely. So again, it comes back to, okay, what is it I hope for my children in terms of the journey? So for me, with my son, we've looked at how he learns and what brings him life, and for him, actually, studying a GCSE type module, it doesn't work for him, and because he doesn't learn that way. And actually, for us, we've chosen an online self-directed learning school called Galileo, because what I've seen for him is he comes alive through learning, through interaction with peers and doing different clubs and new opportunities, and it's kind of on the forefront of things like augmented reality and virtual reality clubs and coding, and He's got opportunities to do things there that I couldn't enable at home. But actually one thing we have chosen to invest in is a weekly maths tutor for him, because he loves maths and I'm terrible at maths. And so we've really had to look at our budget for him and gone, what works, what does he need within our limited resources? But also now I've got twin girls and they're a bit older, so I'm suddenly thinking, oh no, what do we need to do for them? But then also trying to access as much free stuff. So I'm regularly going to organisations and saying, we're a group of home educators, can you give us a discount? Because, you know, our group in Bristol is about 10 families, and seeing if I can negotiate discounts on things and seeing if there's free opportunities. So we have a science museum which runs activities when we're not in lockdown. So again, just trying to work out what we can access as a group. And I find when you go as a group, you've got a lot more leverage for discounts.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Joe. You're brilliant at that. So if you know someone like Joe that's very good at getting discounts, you gotta kind of make sure you're very friendly with them. And it's sometimes just having the chutzpah to I think that's the right phrase, to go and ask for it as well. There's power in community as well. I think sometimes we if you can connect with other people in your area, you can share resources for a start, and you can well, partly it's finding out what's worked for other families, and think, oh yeah, that will work for us, like you were saying, Sean. And then there's the thing about sharing resources. Some people may have certain skill sets. For example, there's a friend who's in our kind of network who's brilliant at drama. She's a drama teacher, so she's able to do drama lessons. So it's like tapping into the skills of the people in your community that help. But yeah, definitely, if you go to organisations and say, you know, for example, like you go into a maths website and say, we've got it's like several families that would like to sign up. Can you give us a discount for that? And often they'll give a home ed discount, and sometimes quite a good one as well. So yeah, that's what I found. So yeah, find yourself a Joe.
So guys, we've got about 10 minutes left. I wonder whether we should talk about social, unless anyone's got any questions that you'd like us to address. I'm wondering if we do need to talk about socialisation and how that can be a real concern for anyone at the start of their home educating journey. I think I'll start. So for me, that was massive. That was a massive concern. Who will our friends be? So it was great linking with Joe and then Matt, and then seeing a group form. But it is a big thing to consider. It's not one to be pushed aside. And I think I would just say that it takes time. It takes time to find the people that actually your children want to be with as well. Just because it's another home educating family doesn't mean necessarily that that's going to work for you as a family. And so it does take time. And again, there's that time of holding your nerve. Yes, Matt.
Thank you. So I'm sorry to cut across, but you reminded me of something. If I don't say anything now, but everything, I think things take time, and that you know, working out your how as well as your why takes time, and it's okay not to have sorted it straight away. And I think the school system seems to work. It feels like it works on a fear basis, and you hear this rhetoric about, you know, is your child up to this stage? By this stage, your child should be doing this, and by this stage, your child should be doing that. Every child is different, and so they will be at different stages. And if you start to listen to that too much, it becomes a fear-based thing, rather than what we're supposed to be doing. So all these things take time, and that's a gutsy thing to do as well, to find. And I don't think in 3 years on, our how has changed, and even like because of lockdown and stuff like that, our how has changed as well as other things, and it does evolve and it does change. So yeah, it does take time, and that's okay. So to not have it sorted, you know, if you think, right, I'm pulling my kids out at the end of July, and then we're starting home education in September, to think that you be able to like pick up run stuff, you might be able to, but it takes time to evolve and find out what it's like and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. Sorry to cut across.
No, it's fine. I was just thinking actually that it's taken me 3 years to just start to be released from the fear that you were talking about, Matt, actually, that we are so conditioned to think that unless your child is in a group of 30 children for 6 hours a day, they are not having good enough friendships. And of course, the reality, we know that your child may connect with, I don't know, however many children in a genuine way. There might not be very many, but we have that, sometimes it can feel that is pressing down from society, whether that's just our perception or not, that you need 30 children of exactly the same age in the same classroom all day for your child to have the friendships they should have. And so that's quite releasing, actually, to think there are days when it is just us, and it is just us quite a lot at the moment because we've just moved to Monmouthshire, so we begin again, and so it is just us quite often now. But at least now, 3 years on, I have the confidence to say that's okay. That's okay. Nothing terrible has happened to my children because they haven't been with 30 children today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I've noticed about being in a community of home educators as well is that our children's socialisation has been wider than probably some people who go to mainstream school, because they're not with people that in the same year group. They mix with people that are older. They mix with people that are younger. They with a variety of different adults, and so actually that it's almost a broader sense of socialization than just that band of people that they're the same age as them. And I know school does it, the mainstream has to do it in a certain that way, but actually that's again another real benefit of people being outside the school system. You get a richer sense of socialization. Yeah.
Jo, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and Emma, just picking up on really Emma's comment that she's just posted about your son wanting to be with family and be safe, and I think that's absolutely spot on. I think you've made a really brave decision, and I think you've made the right decision, because even going back to basic human psychology, people often talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Actually, if we don't feel safe, we can't do anything else anyway. We don't learn or make good friendships or connect well with others if we don't feel safe. It's like a fundamental human need which we build upon. So just to really encourage you, at the moment it sounds like your son just needs a safe place where he can heal and process the trauma, and actually when he's ready, and who knows, that might be in 3 months or it might be in 3 years, then he's ready to go out and rejoin and connect with the world and find friends, and I don't think any of that time is lost. I think it's actually really significant. And these guys hear me talk a lot, but I love Brené Brown's books because she just unpacks quite a lot of those issues and explores that concept of actually surviving a childhood trauma. If we don't deal with it when we're younger, actually we just carry it into adulthood anyway. So actually you're giving your son this amazing space to reconnect and understand who he is and find himself again. And then when he's ready, he'll know. And I think that's great. So I just want to encourage you and say well done.
Yeah, well done.
Absolutely.
I'm mindful we've got Brené Brown, Emma, and Brené Brown. I absolutely love her books. She writes a lot and talks a lot about about belonging and feeling safe and knowing who you are in terms of your identity. And I think it's so key for heading into life. I mean, I was badly bullied at school, so I spent a lot of my adulthood decompressing from that. And I would have loved to have been taken out of school and given space to process.
And of course, everyone's experiences are different, aren't they? And just to encourage anyone who's taken their child out of school who and maybe your child wanted to be home educated but has since said, oh no, I'm missing everyone too much, I want to go back. That happened to us within the first few weeks of home education. But again, coming back to holding your nerve and saying, well, we will, and all we did was say, let's give it till Christmas. Let's give it to Christmas and see how this pans out. And then my daughter was very happy to carry on homeschooling by the Christmas, and to understand that it is a huge transition for them. Even if it's something they want to do, it's still a huge transition for them to go through. And so to have the patience and the courage to hold on to that and to hold on to them as they transition. I'm aware there are 3 minutes left. If there are any final thoughts or questions?
I think my final thoughts are just to cheer everyone on, and it takes a step of courage to step into home educating, whether you've decided from the beginning it's something you want to do or whether it's something you've fallen into by default. I still think it's a courageous decision. I just want to honour everybody in that process.
So Joe, 4 years on. Sorry, Joe, to cut across you. 4 years on, has it been worth it?
Absolutely worth it. My kids are different children, and I love watching them experience life and grow. And not that we get it right all the time, but I wouldn't step back into traditional school.
Matt?
Yeah, so I think there are days when you do question those things, but but overall, of course, it's wonderful to be able to really selfishly spend that amount of time with your children for them, but actually, yeah. And I think going on with what Joe was saying, just to cheer people on and encourage you, well done for doing this, taking this step. And I want to honour that step that you've taken. It's brave, it's gutsy, but you'll see a reward for it.
I think I'm always amazed that I'm pretty sure I have never come across a home educator who has regretted the decision to home educate. And I think that in itself speaks volumes. So yes, well done to everyone. I think I'm going to end it there. I think we just say goodbye. I think that's how it works. Dore, lead us, tell us.
Yes, well done. Thank you guys for your input. I'm sure everybody's learned quite a bit, and there's something that everybody, that resonates with all of us, something in what you said. Well, thank you for those who attended. The next session, well, there's another session now at 7 o'clock this evening. Keep an eye on your app, your Hoover app, as to what's going on. If you have any further questions for these guys, you can contact them through the Hoover app and also through the Streams website. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, do you just want to get the website quickly? I don't know if you want to just put it in the chat for people.
The email address.
Probably best the email, at the moment. And
I'll put that in.
we can
Okay.
link, we're on Facebook and Instagram at the moment. So we have a website in development at the moment that's hopefully will, the idea of it is to connect people, particularly share stories, share reviews about things, but then also that thing about connection. So longer term, it's a site that will do that. So people will be able to connect with other home educators in the neighbourhood and across the country.
Yeah, it's important, especially when you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Okay, thank you very much, guys. And we'll see you at the next session. Take care.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Dore.